So back again, Paris Daily Takes. Um, with the Last Dance being what it is and being out, and let me make sure I move this down a little bit. With the Last Dance, I can say fuck it. With the Last Dance being out and being what it is, and people having the whole Michael Jordan mania and Jordan craze right now. I kind of want to just talk about what Michael Jordan's best game is. There are about like 4 or 5 games I have in my mind that I want to analyze and just talk about what his best game is and how I have a theory that Michael Jordan's last game he played in is actually his best game, which would be Game 6 in Utah in 1998. If I'm not mistaken, it was, let's get the actual amount of points he scored. I'm pretty sure it was 44 or 45. But let's see, 1998 NBA Finals. Um, Michael Jordan scored in that game. He scored 45 points. So his last shot gave him 45 points in that game. I think that is his best game. Um, Obviously, the Last Dance will get into it more when they get to that game actually. But when you look at the fact that one in that series, I think just looking at what happened in that season, the whole team was old. It wasn't like they were spring chickens anymore. Everybody was old. Jordan himself was 35 years old. In that game, I think Ron Harper was ailing. Scotty's back was dead. I know Scotty was actually a plus in that game. I think it was a +7. But if you watch that game, Scotty's back was, he barely could move. Like if that goes to a game 7, I don't even know if Scottie Pippen can actually play that game. Um, and again, like when you just look at age and everything else that had built up over the years, so what was riding on the line, the fact that this may be the last hurrah. Like you may not, if you lose this series, you may not get another chance to do this again. So taking all of that into consideration, I actually think that that's the best game he's played. I think that the 63-point game in Boston has to be up there. It's in his top 5. It's a playoff record. They lost the game, but still, it's a playoff record for points. Anytime you have a playoff record in anything, I think that has to be in one of your best games because you have a playoff record. I think that's one of his best games. I also think that a game a lot of people don't know about, game 3 in the 1992 first round against the Miami Heat, the closeout game in which Jordan scored 56 points. I'm sure you can find the game on YouTube. It is an amazing game from Jordan. It's actually one of my favorite Jordan games. A game that I actually didn't um, know about my whole life. Something that I kind of found out, a game I kind of found out about recently. But if you watch that game, Michael was incredible in that game. I mean, it's one play when like he takes off on like a fast break. It's like a 1-on-3, and I literally remember watching the game, being like, Jordan, what are you doing? Relax. And he just goes up and like dunks it on everybody. I'm just like, okay, never mind. Let me shut the hell up. Clearly, that's Michael Jordan. I think that's one of his best games. I think the '93 finals is his best final series as a whole. Um, what he did to the Suns in that series was incredible, and I think that his performance in Game 4 is one of his best games when he scored 55 points against the Suns in Game 4. Um, Pretty sure it was in Chicago Stadium. Yeah. It was in Chicago Stadium. The game after they had the 55-point game, Jordan came back and scored. No, not 55-point game. The 3 overtime game. Jordan came back and scored 55 points the next game. I think that's one of his best games. And then also I think the flu game is one of his best games. Obviously he didn't score the most points in the flu game, but I think it was like 37 he scored the flu game or something like that. But just how iconic that game was. Whether it was who knows if it was really the flu or whatever it was, he was dead sick. Just how just iconic that game was. The images of him coming to the bench, downright exhausted. You can even see in his eyes that he's downright exhausted, but he's like locking into a mode and getting it done. I think that's also up there. So like I said, I think the games that I would put in that category are the 19. I think number one, Game 6 in 1998, just because it has his one most iconic moment, which is the last shot, but it probably has his most iconic defensive play. Jordan steal on Malone is probably, if any Jordan defensive highlight gets played, it's gonna be that whole sequence. It's gonna be the fact that he stole the ball and then came down and made the last shot, pushed off of Byron Russell, whatever, it was offensive foul. He got away with it, but They didn't call it, so it's whatever. Um, so yeah, even when you look at the fact that that shot gave him 45 points, but just I guess how much of a moment that was. Like, is there a better ending to a player's career than that shot? I don't think that any player has a better ending. I mean, obviously he came back with the Wizards, but obviously Michael Jordan. I feel like Michael Jordan's last moment, I think was the Bulls shot. I don't know if there's a better ending and a better way to cap a career. And again, he came back or whatever, but I don't know if there was a better way to cap a saga off than that shot was. So I think that's his, like I said, his most iconic moment probably is that shot. Um, and under the circumstances, like I said, Ron Harper was ailing. Um, Pip could barely move. The rest of the team is old. Rodman is like 36. The whole cast is old. I mean, everybody in that series looks tired. If I'm not mistaken, I think he scored more than half the team's points in that game. I think the team, how much did the team score in that game? The team as a whole scored 87 points. Michael Jordan scored 45 of them. So basically, Michael Jordan scored more than half of their team's points in that game. Um, yeah, I think that has to be number one. Like I said, to be that age, 35 years old, do what he did in that game with all the odds stacked against him on the road in Utah as well. I don't know how many of you guys know about the Delta Center, but the Delta Center was one ass arena on the road in Utah in a game that to me was really a must win. Like if they go to Game 7, I'm really not sure the Bulls win that basketball game because I'm not sure Scottie Pippen can even walk on the court if they go to Game 7. Because if you watch that game, he could barely move as it was in Game 6. So again, I think that's up there. I think his second best game is the 55-point game in the finals. To score 55 points in the finals is kind of outrageous. It's just outrageous. Now, obviously, the Suns weren't um, a model defensive team, but Dan Marley wasn't no slouch. Dan Marley was an all defensive player. He's supposed to be a good defender, and he went out there and lit him up. I mean, him, Kevin Johnson, all of them got buckets. He went out there and lit them up, scoring 55 in the NBA Finals game, especially coming off a loss. To take the series lead up to 3-1. The 3 overtime game happened. It tied 2-2. You come out, give them 55 points, ensures that we get a 3-1 lead, and we again take command of this series. I think that has to be his second best game. After that, I'm sorry, I know it's a first round game, but I got to go with the 56 points in the closeout game against Miami. For you to score again 56 points in any type of playoff game, I think is absolutely incredible. They won the game. The Heat also weren't going. Like, they were trying to put up a fight. That was a solid Heat team. Pretty sure it was Steve Smith was on that team, if I'm not mistaken. I think Glenn Rice was on that team as well. Ronnie Cycli. So they had a pretty decent team. It wasn't like, that team was just full of nobody. They had some very, very solid players on that basketball team, and Jordan lit them up. So I think that's his third best game. The fourth best game, I'm going to actually go with the flu game. Reason being just because of how iconic it is. I think that when you talk about games, if you were around then, I think that you remember those moments. Like I remember, even the flu game. I remember my grandma screaming out, "That boy sick as a dog. That boy sick as a dog." It's just one of those things that if you were around back then, you remember. Like, I think it was a 2-2 series at that point in time. I think it was a 2-2 series, or maybe they might have been up 3-1. I'm not one. Let me actually look. Let me look to see what the series was when the flu game happened. Let me go back. 97 finals. The flu game, if I'm not mistaken, was game 5 in this series. They were tied 2-2. Tied 2-2, and then Jordan comes through with the flu game, gives you 38 points. With whatever he had, he was dead tired. I think that's incredible. I think that's his fourth best game. Like I said, I think that's one of those games for Mike where if you were around during that time, you remember where you were when you saw that game. So yeah, I'm going with the flu game, and then lastly, I'm going with the game against Boston because I think that's a game that put them on the map. I think it's a game that put them on the map. Having a broken foot, coming back right before the playoffs. Obviously, that's in a point in time in which every game isn't on TV, and you're talking about one of the best well, it's not like it is today. You don't have league pass, so maybe you couldn't even. So maybe a lot of the country might have been seeing Michael Jordan for the first time in that basketball game against the great Boston Celtics. And if you would come out there and light them up with 63 points, that's incredible. So yeah, to me, those are Michael Jordan's best games. In my opinion, obviously Jordan has so many games, like the shot on Elo game I left out. I know that was another 40 popper game that he had. How could I forget game 2 of the 1991 finals? Oh man, that is that is also one of the most incredible sports feats I've watched as well. Um, I didn't put it on the list, but that's an incredible game. When you just look at the circumstances behind it. The Lakers come out, win game 1. At that point in time, the Bulls are pretty much unproven. The Lakers are proven. Magic is proven. The Bulls are unproven. They come out, win game 1. People are like, oh, okay, the Lakers going to win the series. Jordan comes out, gives you, I think it was, 32 points and however many assists he gave you. He had the iconic switch hands layup in that game. Man, I'm not going to take any of the ones I had out. I'm not going to do it. But if I were going to take one game out a game out to put another game in there, it would be that game. That's an incredible game of Mike. Like I said, there's just so many games. Jordan has had in the finals or in the conference finals, even the 50-point game against the Knicks when they were down. I think it was 0-2. He comes back and gives the Knicks 50. Like, there's just so many iconic Jordan games. But again, that's personally my list. Like I said, my list is number 1 game in '98. I think that's his best game in general. Number 2, I think the 55-point finals game. Because anytime you have 55 points in a whole ass NBA finals, that is outrageous. Number 3, I think against the Heat. Because anytime you have 56 points in a playoff game, that's wild. And some of the shit that he was doing in that game didn't make sense. Number 4, the fluke, just because it's iconic, and also it was a 2-2 series. 2-2 series, they lose that game, bro. We don't know what happened the rest of the series. 2-2 series, and Mike rips their heart out in Utah, comes back home, finishes it off, and then number 5, I'm gonna go with the 63-point game in Boston. And my honorable mention is game 2 of the 1991 NBA Finals, in which Jordan was absolutely incredible in. But I want you guys in the comments to let me know. Give me your top 5. What are your favorite Jordan games, or what you think your best Jordan games are? Let me know. Tell me. And until next time, Parrot Daily Takes. Talk to you guys.